Game changers. I covered that. All right, now for those of you who don't know what Game Changers exactly is, well, allow me to explain exactly what it's all about. So, Game Changers is a competitive program that started in early 2021 where women and other marginalized genders compete amongst each other. That is separate from the other circuits that you're already well aware of, such as, PCT, Tier 1, and also the Challengers League, which stands for Tier 2. And there are some players that have distinguish themselves within that field to then fight for a spot in Tier 1/Tier 2 competition. And those people include, of course, Fluorescent, the duelist for Shopify Rebellion, and then there's also Mel of the same team, the IGO of that same team, and also another a good name, Mimi of G2 Ghostin, who led that team win 2022 GC Championship back in Berlin. And so my guest for this occasion as it pertains to GC is no one other than xann. They are a member of a North American Game Changers team called Misu's Cuties, which recently qualified for the 2024 NA Series 1 main event. xann covers their current team, how it has fared in NA Series 1 main event qualifying for the main event, comparing this team with their past teams throughout their career, their experience in Noot, which is a team that was notably disqualified from the 2023 NA Series 3 main event, their identity as a non-binary person, and much more. Recently, you qualified for the main event of Series 1. So, it must have been a very big accomplishment for you because up to my knowledge, you weren't able to reach. Oh, I think you were. Yes, you were able to reach main event within the NA game changer scene. But how are you taking in that kind of accomplishment um with your current team as of this moment in time?
I mean, it feels great, coming into this Game Changers at least. I was not fully certain that I would be able to play as well as my teammate Karie, but we got the offer like last second to be able to join this team with Misu and Emluo and Rise, and we just ran with it and just scrimmed as much as we possibly could, and I feel really confident in my team, and we recently just been putting in as much time as we possibly can to be as good as we possibly can.
Of course, and it's usually the story when it comes to game changers teams. Teams forming together at the last minute and just either doing well or not doing well. But of course, for you guys, obviously, it went for the better. And you mentioned a little bit about joining the team. Exactly, give me that timeline. What kind of what was the timeline like for you when it came to forming or help join this Mrs. Cutie's roster?
So I think it was about a day before the registration ended. I was originally on another team, and then we had a little hiccup, and I didn't know if I'd be able to actually compete in this Game Changers. And then when I was told I was able to, I immediately messaged Misu, and we had this team. Just they had those three players, and they needed two more, and me and Karie went ahead and joined this team. Decided on a name like minutes before we registered, and yeah.
Jesus, that must have been quite a quick ordeal to go through. Because I've talked to many other players that have to go through that kind of stuff. But I guess was it literally just like minutes before the actual deadline for the roster
Quite
logs and
yes,
stuff
quite
like that?
literally. I think like 15 minutes. Is very stressful.
God damn. But yeah, you guys were able to get that done, and yeah, like looking at the team, Misu's Cutie. Of course, you mentioned about Curry, and it's Curry. Curry is someone that I talked to, last year when you guys were part of Nunu. But on top of that, there was of course Misu of Disguised of last year, and it was Rise of Xset, and then Mluo of FlyQuest Red of the previous year. And so, what was it like trying to just work together with a different set of individuals compared to how it was, from your past teams, from the past year?
And, it was definitely a little difficult at first, and we're still having a little bit of those struggles. I mean, Misu Rise, and MLO all pretty much play pretty much the same few agents. So some of us are on a little bit of off rolls here and there, but everyone's kind of still fitting in. Everybody's like, we're all still figuring things out, but we're all doing it together, and we're really putting in the time to achieve our goal of winning everything.
Yeah, and given the fact that you had little time at your disposal to actually make a game plan together, set everything up for the ensuing matches, and exactly what was the game plan? Was it just literally just take it round per round and just figuring things out on the fly, or was there some kind of plan, be it big or small, that was put together before the start of this Series 1 Open qualifiers?
So for the first qualifier, for I guess Open Qualifier 1, it was definitely very puggy, where it was just kind of round by round, just doing everything we could. I mean, we practiced or we scrimmed a lot, but we didn't do many, I guess, out of server type of things where we really like VOD reviewed or went over everything. But we would just go in and play like 5 or 6 scrims every day, and then after that, once Open Qualifier came around, I was IGLing on Duelist, and I mean, we were just running at everybody and just hoping for the best most of the time, and it worked. We made top 4, so.
Yeah, and of course, looking at Series 1, of course, as you mentioned, top four, going all the way to the top four for that kind of competition, given the fact that it had like the two best teams in North America in FlyQuest and Shopify. And yeah, speaking of FlyQuest, it was that team exactly that took you guys down in the semifinals portion, thus putting you in a position where you had to put up a similar showing in Series 2. But regardless of that, taking on FlyQuest, what was that like? 'Cause, you're someone that has had their fair shares of taking on the best teams in the region. But what was that kind of encounter like in particular for you from your point of view?
Um, I think it was a little. I think everyone was a little nervous at first, but once we got in the game and things started flowing, we kind of picked it up a little bit. But I think everybody was just a bit shaky. Not everybody was. We weren't all firing on all cylinders. I think some of us were a little nervous, some of us were a little like shaky, and some people were just. It just wasn't going completely to plan with the game plan that we had, and eventually we fell short, but we were all still really proud of ourselves and how well we did making top 4, especially with the very limited amount of practice that we had. I think we put up a very good showing.
Oh, sure, no doubt, and exactly in the second map, you guys went into overtime, on Sunset, and you know, it was one in which you guys were able to fight back in that second half on attacking side, but of course, when overtime started, and that kind of just went away, or the momentum went into the opposing team's favor. Of course, you weren't the highest rated player for your team in that contest, but still, for it to go as close as it did, um, how did you view that map for you?
I think a lot of the time, since like I was IGLing like pretty much fully on Duelist, I was less thinking about how I was playing and more or less what I'm like the reads I'm trying to make, and trying to think about how the other team is playing, more or less how I'm doing. And it definitely hurt me in a mechanical sense and how good I was able to play. But going into this next main event, I will be like half IGLing and splitting it with my teammates, so I will be able to fully focus on myself most of the time, at least. I definitely struggled in that series, but there's a lot of learning coming out of it. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And to be an IGL on the duelist, I feel it's a task that is much more harder than it is for, like, let's say, a sentinel or initiator or controller. But um, how difficult was it for you to be not so much as just the entry fragger, the first entry fragger, but also someone that has to lead a team while doing it?
I think it was a little bit difficult at first. I had during the off season, I'd been playing on a team called EQX with you know a bunch of people, and I was IGLing and on duelist the entire time, and I think it really helped me learn how to play around it more and how to, I guess, shine as an IGL and as a duelist at the same time. But switching it to this team, it was definitely different because this team wasn't fully like didn't have the full understanding of how I wanted to call. We didn't have nearly as much practice as I had on that team. So it definitely took some time, but I feel like going into this upcoming week of practice, it is going to we will everybody will finally get the understanding. We're doing a lot more than we were then.
And now going into the second open qualifying phase, of course, given the fact that you guys finished in the semifinals in the first open qualifier, it kind of gave you a lot of cushion um to put up a not exactly the same kind of performance as in finishing top four, but still just doing a good enough so that you guys would then qualify for main event. But although you guys weren't able to crack the semis, losing out to Passion Project, which eventually went on to win the second open qualifier in the quarterfinals. What do you feel was the things that had to be fleshed out, had to be adjusted, had to be worked on? Given the fact that you had a different sort of position within the team for this go around.
I feel like a lot of us just shut down in that series against Passion Projects. I think the first map they got out to like an 8-0 lead against us, and I think it really just hurt our momentum going into it. We had a game plan, and once they got the momentum, we just didn't stick to it. We did not stick to what we knew would actually work, and it really screwed us over. I think a lot of us just mentally just kind of shut down and did not play up to the standard that we know we can all play, and we didn't play for each other. We all just kind of played our own game, I guess.
What do you think caused that kind of struggle in that
I
contest?
think it's a momentum thing. I think momentum can really hurt a team. And, we really didn't have a coach, or we didn't have any coach in that series whatsoever. So we had no pauses. We didn't really take any pauses. We had no one trying to like pick us up. It was kind of all of us for each other. And then when everybody's mental is down at the same time, there's no picking each other up because nobody's able to fight through that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I can understand, the kind of struggles that the teams such as yours would go through when a series doesn't go your way, basically from the jump. And despite the fact that you guys weren't able to defeat that team in that series, you guys were able to qualify for Series One. Um, on account of just circuit points and just putting up a decent amount compared to the other teams within the region. So when you guys realized that qualification was secured, despite crashing out in quarters, did that kind of give a sour taste for you, given the fact that you could have gone farther had things gone your way against that team?
I wouldn't necessarily say it was a sour taste. I think it was more or less the fact that we already knew that we only needed to make top 16 to qualify for main event. So once we hit that, I think all of us kind of were just like, okay, let's start limit testing more, and up until we get to like the teams that we're really worried about playing against. And this is nothing towards the other teams that we played, but the teams that we were worried about facing that like we felt would be a very good game. We definitely limit tested a lot more. And then once we got into the games of the higher teams, I think that mindset kind of uh, moved over a little bit, and I just don't think we played our absolute best, to be honest. But I do feel like moving or going out early on definitely helped us a bit because it it showed us that like we're not always just gonna win. We're not always gonna win a dominant faction. We're not always just gonna be gifted a top four spot. we need to really lock in and play the best that we absolutely can.
Yeah, and as a result, as I mentioned before, you guys were able to qualify for the second or not second, but first main event alongside a good set of teams within the region, such as I mentioned before, Shopify, Passion Project, FlyQuest Red, the boys, YFPX, Infinity X, and Supernova Galaxy. And so, of course, the expectations are that Shopify is going to remain dominant for this main event. But where do you see your team shaping up compared to the rest of the other sides within this main event, upcoming main event tournament?
I definitely think we could get in the top three and upset some of the pretty good teams. I have full confidence in my team and how well they're able to perform whenever everybody's firing on all cylinders. I uh I definitely have confidence in my team and how well they're able to do.
Who do you view as your main obstacle? I mean, is it basically Shopify? It's because everybody's
I mean, yeah,
gunning for
I
for
yeah.
Shopify, right?
Yeah, obviously, definitely gonna always be Shopify. I mean, until somebody can really like consistently beat them, there's there's nobody to beat but Shopify.
I do understand though that they encountered some close series against Passion Project and FlyQuest, and I'm kind of intrigued on where do you see the current level of Shopify compared to the rest of the league? Is the gap like as big as one might imagine it is when it comes to looking at North American game changes and just the entire competitive field, or do you feel it's closer, or where do you see that kind of dynamic?
I definitely still see them being at the top and in a tier of their own. Whether these teams are getting maps on them or even making it close, I they're always going to pull it out somehow, some way. Something FE's is going to take a pause. They're going to figure out what's going on and definitely going to win it.
Of course,
But I like I said, I do feel like they are always just going to be that top dog until a team is able to consistently beat them and show that they could be better than them or they can be better than them, and when it matters, then they're going to be that top dog.
do you feel you guys have the potential to take down Shopify like right now in your current form?
In this current form, I don't believe so, but give us more time to practice and then definitely.
I want to know what's it like. I know I already mentioned something about working with the rest of the team, but now that you've been able to have a lot of time, working with your other teammates within misu Securities, um, how would you describe them, individually? Yeah, how would you describe them in particular your teammates in Misu, Rice, Emlo, and then Karie?
Start with Misu. Do you mean it's described like in game and like how their personality clashes within game?
Yes.
So definitely Misu. I feel like as she's very young, she's 17. I feel like she's always just wants to do something. Whatever idea you have, whatever you want to do, she's always on board with it. Doesn't matter if it's pushing into three people. She just wants to do it. She wants to try it. She wants to just get in there and just do everything that she can to help her team win. She's definitely on an off roll right now. She played smokes for disguised and I think flashes as well. But now we have her on recon initiator, and then pretty much any other role that everybody else can't play, she's just filling it and doing absolutely amazing at it and getting better at those roles every day. Um, Rise is definitely like our team captain. I think she's still getting used to that, but letting her know that we all trust her and that we have full faith in her and the calls that she's able to make at times is definitely helping with her. She's extremely like not energetic, but just always funny, always laughing, always talking about something that's just like helping the team like try to keep the mental up even when it's in practice, even when it's in matches. And going on to Emlo, very laid back, very chill person. Not much to say about her other than that, yeah, she's really laid back, she's really sweet, and me and her definitely choke back and forth a lot of the time. And on to Karie. I love Karie. Karie has been with me since the first iteration of Noot Noot. Definitely one of my favorite teammates of all time. And every team I'm on, I want her to be there. She is one of the best Sentinel players I've ever played with. I can always rely on her to at least get 2 or 3 of a round. She is just amazing. And me and her will argue and go bicker and back and forth, but it's always jokes. We're always messing around with each other. But yeah, she's just one of the best players I've ever played with. And when she's playing up to her full potential, I think she's by far the best Senti in Game Changers, or Sentinel in Game Changers.
How does this roster compare with your past rosters? You know,
I'd say it's a bit different. It's definitely on Nunu. There was we definitely joked around a lot, but it was mostly just me and Millie, my old teammate, and we would always make jokes, but it was always just me and her kind of going back and forth, just being like, I guess the class clowns, I guess you could say that. But on this team, everybody's always saying something like stupid or funny. Everyone's always joking around and going back and forth with each other. So it's definitely it's a more silly type of team when it comes to like being in practice, and everybody's always making jokes. Everybody's always trying to have fun. And on New New, it like we would have fun at times, but there was always those times where it's like shit just got really serious. And we would absolutely just 100% be locked in no matter what it was. If it was a scrim, if it was a match. And yeah, it was they're definitely different in the sense, especially with the players. Not a lot of the same personalities, besides like obviously Karie, but other than that, it's definitely a different atmosphere.
oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, Snoot is a team that I, covered before, during my days as a writer. Of course, I talked to Karie last year. I'm sure you read that article from the past, and it's something I will provide in the description of this video. Talk to me about that new team, because it was one team that really did make waves in North American GC in 2023, despite the fact that you guys were basically a free agent team and just basically represented a literal penguin uh, in the scene. But how good was how good was that team back then last year, and kind of the process that it took for you guys to get to that next level, to then basically fighting toe to toe with the region's best teams?
So, going into Nunut, I had been on prior teams to Nunut, very unknown rosters. It was just a bunch of random free agent players, but I had my LFT up and got reached out to by one of the managers, and they just need me to fill a scrim like very last second, kind of as like a last second trial because someone had dropped out, and I ended up getting like 40 kills and just playing very, very good. So they brought me in again, and it just kept happening. So got picked up to Nunu, and I mean we practiced nonstop every day. I think we were doing Saturdays at one point, but the way that we would do things was it was a one map per week, or one map like heavy strong on that one map, where we would just do Haven, 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 Haven until that was by far our best map. And we'd branch out into more and just keep doing that same thing, and we just keep doing the same things over and over. But that first iteration of Nunu was definitely one of the most fun experiences I've ever had on a team. It was a big jump going from the roster I was on previously going into Nunu. With an IGL like Summertime, it is they are one of the smartest people I think I've ever met. So playing on a team with them and just having full trust that my IGL has the call and knows exactly what the other team is going to be doing, it was a very great experience playing with somebody as smart as Summer. And I have definitely taken a lot from my IGL style from Summers. So, that first iteration of Newt was was a very, very great experience.
Yeah, and it was a team that at first time I believe also was signed by or was like affiliated with Supernova Galaxy. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but yeah, it was one that definitely stood out among the rest and actually grabbed my attention when it came to just focusing on which team would kind of emerge from this massive region that is NA, specifically in game changes. And yeah, it was to that point that the team eventually did manage to qualify for main event. But again, of course, with new most people are going to remember about Series 3 and their disqualification, of course, and then of course you were a part of that. And of course, it it's something that kind of also generated a lot of news outside of Pro Valorant. But the fact that the things kind of ended that way, I just want to know from your perspective exactly what was your perspective, from that whole kind of ordeal that happened concerning the team and with Malibu and then their subsequent banning and stuff like that. So just give me your perspective on that.
So to kind of break down and I guess TLDR the situation. We had just played our first map against Complexity and then finished the second one. And then going into map 3, they said we were having a tech pause. And we just sat in TeamSpeak for about an hour, if not, I'm pretty sure more. And then an admin came in, told us what was happening, and that was it. They said we were being disqualified. They gave us a link to the article that pretty much everybody read, and that was it. They never gave us any other reasoning. They never told us, exactly why. They just gave us that article. And then up until about, I think, like a month ago is when the article came out of the competitive ruling, I'm pretty sure. Maybe a little bit more than a month ago. That's when, we fully found out everything that like actually happened. But, going through that, it was definitely it really sucked because a lot of people that I really considered, I guess, friends or people in the scene that I was friends with or close with, like kind of turned on me a bit and like assumed that I had some big part in this and we were some cheater conglomerate or some shit and or sorry, I don't mean to cuss, but you know, um it was it was a really crappy situation, but to come out on the other side and to for everybody to finally understand, what actually happened and to know that like nobody was actually cheating and that it was subsequently for ban evading and then obviously the account sharing as well. Like I said, really crappy situation, but I'm just glad we got to come out on the other side and people finally know, what truly happened and what really came out of that situation or what happened with that situation.
So you guys were literally in the dark from the moment that disqualification or that kind of disqualification happened up until the entire ruling.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and if I may, if I want, if you allow me to ask, I want to know, how did you guys even meet Malibu in the first place?
So what happened was the full timeline I guess was after GC2 where we lost to DSG and summertime retired and we picked up a new IGL and then I got offered to trial for FaZe Clan and so I made FaZe Clan and I'm supposed to be signed to FaZe but then they dropped the roster. So after that happened, I got approached by Karie and Summer and they're like, hey, we're gonna rebuild Noot. And Karie had just left Supernova. Millie was about to leave Supernova, and Nora was staying with Supernova, and some of us didn't really want to play with Nora at the time. So Summer was like, "Hey, I have this player," and we're like, "Okay." And then they were like, "Xann, they're gonna be playing, or Xann Malibu's gonna be playing flashes, so go play ranked with them." I was like, "Okay." It's just so you can build chemistry. And playing with her, it was I mean, she's still to this day one of the best players I've ever played with in my entire life. I mean, mechanically and just like brain wise, she is insanely smart. She's also very, very nice and just a very cool person. But meeting her, I mean, we were just told that this is somebody that Summer used to play CS:GO with, and that's about it. It's like, yeah, she used to play some Valorant, but she mostly used to play CS and Quake or something. And I mean, that's really about it. And we just started practicing and went into GC3 as is.
Because I seen a bit of her highlights, and of course, like she stood out very quickly. Despite not having a discernible background from all of the games that you mentioned in that answer. But yeah, when you see people, just try to um, put up allegations, maybe she was accusing aimbot or something like that. How did you even look at that, considering the fact that you played with them before the start of Series 3 qualifying, and then having to play matches together and stuff like that?
I mean, to be honest, I thought it was funny because like playing with her, I mean, obviously I know she isn't cheating, but she is still one of the best players I've ever played with, and the amount of like aim training like that she consistently has done and the amount of like FPS games that she's played over time, she is definitely one of the best mechanical players I've ever played with. But a lot of that still comes from like just hours and hours and hours of time that she has like put into other FPS games and Valorant itself, She yeah, it was funny because, playing with her and seeing just like how she plays and then some of the clips that people were like saying, "Oh, this is cheats." And then I go back and like look at everything and there's like perfectly reasonable like explanations for everything. It was funny to me, I guess.
There also comes the question about when it comes to looking at that iteration of Newton and how Malibu joined the team, and there's also the question of how, like, oh, you guys should have known about what they were, and what the kind of things that they were doing up until that point, which you guys were disqualified, and stuff like that, and this and that and this and that. And so, were you guys like aware of that kind of things that Malibu was doing, like account sharing,
We
the
had
things
no
that kind
idea.
of that?
We had no idea. I mean, exactly what I told you is what happened, where it was just summertime being like, "Hey, this is the person we're gonna play with." It was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And that's about it. I mean, I had like a slight suspicion that maybe she was like on a complete like on a newer account because her rank was like a little low, I guess. But other than that, I never really like I had no reason to think much about it. I mean, she was just a really good player in my eyes.
Hmm. Yeah, and of course, as a result, as you mentioned also in one of your past answers, that kind of led to this disqualification, and basically the community just sort of lashing out at you guys, uh, um, both near or far. But how are you able to go past that kind of situation? Because I understand that that kind of thing must have affected you to a great degree.
Yeah, I was definitely not doing the best mentally for a little bit about it because, we didn't really know what was going to happen. I mean, obviously every person and their mothers assumed that, this was some conglomerate and all of us knew exactly what was happening and everybody was thinking that we were just some big cheater conglomerate and all of us were in on this together. But I really think what pulled me out of, I guess, the depression I definitely like dug myself into was being on the team EQX and meeting one of my good friends now, Kami Eunice. She plays in Game Changers as well. She is just one of my close friends now, and as much as we don't talk as much anymore because we're not on the same team anymore, but playing games with her every night and like talking to her about this whole situation and just having someone that's like right there for me and somebody that I can just like joke around with and just someone I can be myself around. It was definitely it, it was very helpful. And being on that team and being able to like, compete, whether I wasn't able to compete in Riot sanctioned events anymore, like the Knights, like Sakura's or anything like that, but just playing with the group of people that I was playing with at the time, it definitely helped. And it helped me escape a lot of what was going on mentally.
Yeah, and I'm glad you were able to overcome that kind of ordeal and just continue playing, just continue being at your best and getting to this current position of being in a team such as Misu's Cuties and just keep going at it. Basically, it really is a display that everyone should look at and just um have that be a moment for them to grow themselves. And so yeah, it really is an admirable thing to to see you go past that. Given the fact that so much kind of news happened because of Noot, um, and how much of attention it spawned to the team, bad as it was. Um, how do you look at back at that kind of experience and how significant it is not just to the people that were affected by it, but also the people that were a part of that team, including yourself. How do you view the significance of that team towards your career, for in the present, in the past, and also for the future going forward?
I mean, it's definitely always going to be something that's on my resume, but it's at the point that I'm at now, it's not really something I'm looking at as like a stain on, my resume. It's not something that I'm looking at as it was a super bad situation. As much as that situation sucked, I learned a lot and I definitely became a lot better of a player. I learned more how to just like deal with these things mentally and for better or worse words, like stuff's gonna happen, Like whether you like it or not, sometimes stuff's just gonna blow up in your face and there's nothing you can really do about it. And you just gotta be able to overcome that.
Now I want to get a now focused onto you specifically and getting into Pro Valor in the first place. Of course, everyone has their own story of how they got into Valor, and yours is no different. But exactly how you got into competing in the games such as Valorant, deciding to also compete in Game Changers. Walk me through that kind of story and how you were able to get into the game in the first place.
Yeah, so I originally played a lot of Counter-Strike. Up until about like 2015, I never really had a computer, and I got some really old, crappy laptop that I could barely run Counter-Strike on, and I got addicted to it. Eventually, getting a gaming laptop after that one and just playing it every single day, getting home from school and just non-stop playing until about 3 in the morning, falling asleep, getting no sleep, getting home, and getting back from school and just immediately getting back on Counter Strike. And up until about I guess 2019 when I quit CS and I just stopped. I just didn't have any enjoyment anymore. I didn't really play many FPS games until Valorant came out. And once it came out, I didn't enjoy it as much at first. I think because I was wanting it to be CS, but I wasn't finding that enjoyment in it that I was originally with CS. I wasn't enjoying the grind as much. But it's like one act where I was just like, okay, this is kind of fun. And then I just started playing it a lot and a lot. And eventually coming into 2023, I'd heard about the game changer scene and obviously being non-binary, I was eligible to play and I put out an LFT and got, a bunch of offers from a bunch of different teams. I had joined one team that was not the greatest and then left them about a day later, joined another team and didn't want to play the role they wanted me to play, so I left that team and then joined Penguin Waddle, which was my first real Game Changers team that I competed with, played in I think GC1 of last year. It was a great experience. You know, we got grouped. Did not do too well, but it was fun. It showed me that I still had that drive to compete, and it really made me want to just keep grinding the game even more. And then posting that LFT and getting the offer to join Noot definitely just set a fire under me, and I was just like, I really want to be the best in this game.
What made Valorant different for you in your eyes, other than like playing CS and other FPS games? What made the difference for you to want to pursue um just competing in that kind of game?
I mean, definitely the utility, and I think growing up more, I on when I played a lot of CS, I was very hyper, very push everything and just want to run at everybody. And then playing Valorant, I tried to take a more I mean, I definitely still would push things, but I tried to be more I just tried to take a slower approach and try to understand what was happening like with utility, and it was definitely a learning curve because, you know, in CS there's only like four pieces of utility that, you know, you need to use and you need to remember, but in Valorant there is so many different things that can be happening at once, and you have to be able to process that information in your head that, oh, Sova used his recon dart like 10 seconds ago, so he's not going to have it up for another like 20 seconds. So we should be able to do this without being scanned or without him trying to gather information, right? And it was definitely a learning curve, but it was enjoyable because I like that. I like learning something new and then trying to be the best at it that I possibly can.
Yeah, of course. And given that you were able to be a part of a lot of good teams in your own right, I'm kind of curious on what do you see as like your favorite moment competitive wise? You know, which moment stands out to you as the best over everything else?
Mm, I think it was our first tourney win. It was nothing big, but on Newt when we won our first like Sakura Cup or something. You know, like I said, it was nothing big. It was, you know, just one of like the monthly Sakura Cup tournaments, and I don't know, something about just finally getting that win because we had played one prior to that and we lost in the finals to I don't to just a team called Randoms, and it was just a bunch of different pros all on the same team, and I played really bad in that series. And you know, I was really disappointed in myself, but then going into the next one, I just remember being so absolutely dialed in and as locked in as I possibly could be to make sure that we came out on top, and it was great. It was a really good experience, especially playing with that team. It was always a lot of fun.
What do you view as your ultimate goal as a player? You know, is it winning NA main event or maybe qualifying for GC
Definitely winning champs.
champions? Okay.
Definitely. I mean, I feel like you're going to get that answer from most people if you were to ask that question, but I feel like that's the goal. You know, that's what everybody wants to reach. That's where everybody wants to be, you know?
You know, surprisingly, it's not actually just making international lands. I've talked to a decent amount of people in game changes, but it's mostly reserved kind of goals, you know, just trying to have a good career, have decent results. You know, it's actually not as big as goals as one you might expect, but still, everyone has their goals, and I respect each one of them, including yours. And so, yeah, it's gonna be tough, but I will say that you have all of my support going forward in making champs for
I
soon.
appreciate that.
Were there times in which you doubted yourself, like very to a great degree? Were there times where that kind of happened?
Yeah, definitely.
And what helped you sort of reach a clear mind that put you in the state that you're currently in? You know, what were the kind of things that you looked at that kind of helped you gain a direction? You know,
I mean, definitely just people around me, you know, people being supportive and telling me that like things are okay, and it's okay to not be okay at times. That you should be able to feel any which way you want, and that's okay.
I understand that there's been abuse thrown upon, non-binary people and then non-cis women in the space. Do you feel you had to go through that kind of abuse, competing in Pro Valorant, stuff like that?
um I wouldn't necessarily say I've had to deal with that. There's definitely people that's had to deal with worse, but I do feel like it's still not a very safe space. I mean, Game Changers is a safe space, but Valorant itself, there is still a lot of very closed-minded people who don't like to accept that things are different and things can be different. In Valorant, we if you compete in Game Changers, you get a title that's the VCT Game Changer title. And if you're to use that card or that title and your voice is not, very female sounding, I guess, it definitely raises flags for people and you'll get questioned about it. And yeah, it's people can be very odd, I guess. It's the best way to put it.
Does that kind of thing, like the tag game changer? Because I've seen that, of course, during my games. Do you feel that kind of helps, or in a good way, or or a negative way, in trying to deflect abuse towards people such as yourself and people such as non-cis women within the game? Do you feel that kind of helps
Um,
or not?
with that card being on, I I don't even use it because of that reason. Because I don't feel like I just feel like there's always a chance that somebody is going to say something and it's just going to start problems for some reason, and I don't want to have to deal with that.
Although I understand that we're roughly not even 5 years into the existence of Game Changers, and also the fact that Game Changers, as it is something that is one of its kind, in the fact that it allows women, NB people, non-cis women people to compete in a way in which they're able to. Do you feel that this sort of abuse, discrimination, all of that stuff, the tide's turning in that regard for the
Yeah,
better?
definitely. Yeah, I feel like over time everything is going to get better. I feel like people just need to open their minds and understand that not everything is exactly what they were told growing up, I guess, and that things are different out there and things are changing, and that's okay. But I feel like some people just don't have a full understanding of that yet.
And what do you see as the biggest obstacle that, that prohibits or that is facing GC community from just taking that next proverbial step for the better and just having to be in a position where, of course, that ideal position where anyone can be accepted, anyone can compete without any worry in their mind. What do you feel is that obstacle that needs to be overcome later on down the line?
Mm. It's a difficult question because, I think it's just people. I think people need to, and I don't want to, sound like a broken record here and repeat what I say, but I feel like people just need to open their minds and stop being so hateful because something is different than what they're used to, I guess, and what they think things should be and how they actually are.
Of course, and that said, given that we were able to talk so many things about yourself, Xan, and also your career outside of it, how you compose yourself, your current teams, your past teams, um, where are you now in your mentality right now? Do you feel like you are in a sense of satisfaction, gratification, worry, or do you feel there's a sense of just something that is left over that needs to be filled? You know, where exactly do you view your mind right now?
I
Um,
definitely feel satisfied. I think uh, I think we touched on a lot of good things. Got out a lot that was needed to be said.
of course, and that about wraps up all of my questions for this interview. It really was an eye-opening experience, you know, talking to you and just having to know more about you aside from just looking at the player. But it's also great to see what it is of a person behind the screen and just behind their stats. And yeah, which brings me to one more question. Frankly enough, I should have just asked this at the very start. Why Xann? Why is Xann your name? You know, like
Um,
is it because you're a fan of Little Xann or something like that?
no, no. Um, I don't know. It was like 2017, and it's the name that came to mind. I have changed my name probably about 100 times to different aliases over time, playing CS and playing this game. Um, and I was like, okay, we'll just stick with Zan. And I went back to this name in like 2022, I think maybe, and I just stuck with it ever since. There's no reasoning, no real reasoning behind the name, I guess.
It's got to be a reason, right? I mean, it's not just one in which you just thought of, okay, randomly, like, oh, okay, I'll just put in Xann, XANN. Okay, we'll just start with that. There has to be a reason, right?
So I would just put my name on Steam when I played CS as just random things at times, and I think my name was XN, and then someone said Zan in one of my games because they thought that I just didn't put the AA in there, and I was like, no, no, it's just like random. I'm just randomly putting it as XN. And they're like, oh, okay. And then I think that kind of stuck with me. I was like, okay, Zan. And then I just added two N's to it, and yeah, that's pretty much about it.
It's probably the only story behind the creation of a name that probably just happened literally on the fly, just having no other background other than that. Well, it's, I mean, eye-opening experience right there. We're learning something new every day. So, yeah, Xann, random, just Xann.
Yeah.
All right, that about, as I said before, wraps up all of my questions. Xann, thank you so much for taking the time and just answering all of my questions, covering various topics along the way, and just having to let me know more about you and allowing everyone else that are either watching and listening to this interview to know more about you as well. So I really appreciate you just taking the time, Xann. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you for reaching out and allowing me to get on here and talk pretty much.
Of course. You got any final words, any final acknowledgments that you want to give, any final shout outs that you want to say before we wrap this up?
Um, Not really. Shout out to my team. Shout out to Misu's QTs. And shout out to Karie, my my duo, my favorite teammate. I love her.